I wouldn't be where I am now with him if it wasn't for you. And
I like the way that you break things down. So that's pretty cool. Now that I have something that I feel like I can really work at.
Sick of sacrificing or settling in your romantic life? Welcome to Make Him Wonder with Coach Paula Grooms, where women struggling in real relationships ask the expert. Unscripted, unfiltered, understandable coaching conversations to help passionate women succeed in love.
To get right into today's guest because it's a fun topic, and I don't get to do topics like this often enough. So I'm very excited to have my guest today, 22-year-old Rose, who has wonderful questions about dating, like, is it more likely for a wealthy man to accept a long-distance relationship because he has the money to afford traveling? Is a successful and stable man turned off by a woman who doesn't come from an equally successful background? Rose wants to know, what can she do to alleviate feelings of worthiness and lovability when she wasn't shown a lot of unconditional love when she was a child? And lastly, do men think what you do with them, you do with all men, because what they do with us, they do with all women? So I'm quite impressed that Rose is pondering these topics at her young age and asking such important questions, and I'm looking forward to diving into these questions. Therefore, without delay, welcome, Rose.
hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. These are great questions, and I assume that you have come across situations that have led you to be asking these, so I want to ask about that. Is that true?
Absolutely. I mean, I haven't dated a lot. I'm a bit of a nerd, but I have, I was a couple years ago, I think it's been a year now, I was in a relationship, and it was for a year with an older gentleman. And after that ended, I took some time for myself, and I recently went on a trip. And during my trip, and I'm constantly traveling, I've been meeting a lot of men during my travels, and meet more men when I'm traveling than when I'm home. I don't know, I don't know why that is. And it made me question these things, because I really, within a 6-day time span, I had 6 different guys approach me, and I was thrown. This never happens to me when I'm home. So, which led to my question.
If you had to say what the difference is when you're in your environment and home and traveling, what do you think that might be?
I believe I was in environments. I mean, I'm a solo traveler most of the time. I love taking solo trips, and I believe that was one factor. I'm constantly working, on the go, grocery store work, and so I don't actually go out very often. In one day, I was going to a resort, a bar, all of these open spaces, and perhaps also, I think maybe these men, because I was a solo traveler, maybe they thought I was open to a hookup kind of situation, which I wasn't. But, it's not going to stop them from pursuing that with me. So I think that those may have been the contributing factors.
Yes, I think probably all of those are factors. I'm going to put a little caveat on one of them and add in that one thing you might be missing is your energy and what you're putting out when you are traveling. And here's what I mean by that. At home, and this can happen for a lot of us, we are in our heads a little bit more because it's a have to do kind of energy. We're driving, on transportation, getting to and from work or to and from school, or thinking about, what I have to do when I get home, and all manner of daily things that are in our lives. And the energy is very different because when we are traveling, it's an open, like, let me experience. There's a few, it's not like have tos. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think that's true because I definitely was open and excited, and I had a really great energy. I had an amazing trip.
Exactly. So that energy is one thing. If we can bring it into our life in our own environment, that can be very helpful. Not so easy to do, but when we're mindful of it, it's a biggie. It's inviting to men. The thing I want to caution you about is the limiting belief of, because my question to you is, how do the men know when you're out at, say, you're in your different city, you're traveling wherever you are, and unless it's everyone speaks the language and you don't, perhaps, how would any man know that you are actually a traveler and not just someone, who happens to be there?
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that. And most of my travel is within the US, so there really isn't anything that could tip them off to me being a traveler.
Right. So it's not that they're thinking you were traveling and so maybe are open to a hookup. And that's the limiting belief I'd like you to challenge for yourself.
I think that I'm oftentimes very protective of myself because I don't want to get hurt or I don't want to waste my time. Um, and so sometimes I make assumptions because, for example, on my recent trip, many of the guys followed up with me, but there were a couple guys who kind of dropped off. And so part of me was like, maybe because I was traveling, and we don't live in the same area, they did not continue pursuit. But I do hear you on that limiting belief.
Great. You bring up a really good point here that I like highlighting. And that is, most men are not looking for a long distance relationship. It's the nature of women to be open to any man that suits us, gains our fancy, so to speak, because it's much more rare for us. We are not interested in all men. That's my puppy principle. The way that men are interested in all of us in one way, shape, or form. So when we meet someone that we are attracted to, interested in, what have you, no matter where he is, we would go with it if he were open to it and actually committed to it. But statistically, it doesn't work out. There's actually a statistic about it, which is there are two factors. The first is that the couple must start the relationship in the same area and not be long distance. If that criteria is met, if they're going to be long distance prior to splitting and going to the different areas, the only way it lasts more than 14 months is if the couple is engaged with plans to be together Otherwise, statistically, all long-distance relationships will be broken up within 14 months. So, ergo, your question about long-distance relationships, is it more likely for a wealthy man to accept a long-distance relationship because he has the money to afford traveling? It's a good question. I don't think it's going to lead you to the end result of commitment any more or less because of the money to do so. It can. But I think that for our purposes of wanting commitment, of wanting real relationships, of not being hurt, the most important thing is to know if it's going to be at a long distance, statistically, it has a very low chance of survival for the long term. Again, unless, for example, you live in the same area, you become a couple and it's all going well, and then one or the other has to move, and then the man makes the decision to commit, ergo engagement or something of that sort, in terms of you both have plans to move together again and go the distance. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you for answering the question, because I was so sad. I my emotions are showing. I met this wonderful guy at a bar, and I really connected with him, and I could tell he really connected with me. You know, it's what you discuss in your book, where it's like, you know, something is there. And I was so surprised. This is just so random, but he offered to take me on his helicopter because he's also a pilot. And then he messaged me the next morning. He was like, I can be there in 20 minutes. And I said, no, I need a little more time. And he was like, I'm sorry, I have meetings. And then he never messaged me. And I was really taken aback by that. And it really led me to think through the question, because so many of the guys I had met while traveling were saying, oh, I'd love to keep in touch. I'd love to see you. They were all words, no action. And I did not chase or follow up. I, wanted to see if they were really going to stay by their words, or if they were just taken aback and overwhelmed by me in the moment, which is normal. And so it's really helpful to know. But I will admit I was a little sad after that experience, and I had a feeling that regardless of his means, it is, ideal to pursue and date someone who is, within, that 20 to however many mile radius of where you live.
Here's what happens for the man. You hit on it. You said, I understand he might be overwhelmed by me in the moment. And that's exactly what it is. And I talk about this in the book. Men are on top of time. And in that moment, when he's saying wonderful things to you, he feels it, he believes it, he wants it. You're in front of him. Think about this. It is really biologically based, anthropologically based. Men are hunters, and they have to make very quick decisions, actions in the moment, and that's their survival mechanism. It's helped us survive as a species, but it carries over into all areas of their life, especially in terms of mating. And mating in the wild, when we were in the wild, was a very dangerous thing. And men also made snap decisions about that. Mating had to be very fast. in the wild, and we could be attacked by marauders, animals, what have you. So it's very biologically based why what he's saying and the interest he is showing in that moment seems so genuine and so profound almost that you can't imagine that there's no follow through. But then they're on to the next moment. And if it's not like you experienced with the pilot, it wasn't convenient for him. Now, was it rude? Absolutely. Understandable why you would be disappointed and sad. Here's what can help. In that moment, when you were at the bar and talking to him and he showed this interest and he said to you, would you like to take a helicopter ride tomorrow? What do you think could have been a better response to see if there's actual real interest?
Perhaps state that I have plans tomorrow and see if there's another time.
That's an interesting point. Yes, you absolutely could. Just saying, oh, that would be fun, but I do have plans. He would maybe drop it or continue. Better, however, to show him this. You want to think of your value. When we think of our value right off the bat and always go to that, we tend to get the best response. And here you are, you're just meeting him at a bar. First of all, he's telling you he's a pilot. You actually don't know.
Mm.
We must think of our safety above all and be circumspect of anything a man says when you don't know him. Now, our intuition may tell us, oh, well, it's true, but we don't know. There's actually a book out, I wish I could get the name of it, and if I come across it, I'm trying to manifest that I will come across this book again, because it explains why we, as a species, and there's a theory name for it, are so bad at recognizing when someone's lying. It's foundational that we must go to a thought that what someone is saying is true. Because if we didn't, think of how chaotic and unmanageable life would be. In other words, if we thought that everything that came out of someone's mouth was a lie, always, we would not be able to function as a society. It's default to truth. We must default to truth. And we tend to do that, but we have to, as females, when we are in front of new men, to be highly circumspect of whatever it is that they're saying until we really know them. So when we do this and we think about this in connection with showing our value, it tends to work very well for us. So it would be something a la, oh, a trip in your helicopter. Well, I wouldn't be comfortable, but I would maybe meet for dinner. You see? Because you're showing him, I don't go meet somebody and go somewhere. Think of how unsafe that would be if he were someone with nefarious thoughts, even if he was that pilot, and he flies you somewhere and you are stuck and you are alone with him. Correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we show our value, like, I don't think so, and you don't say it that way, but You can, but it's the coyness and the flirtiness. You say it with, I don't think I'd be up for a helicopter ride, but you can always start with dinner. That will help you. It's again why you're meeting someone online. He says, I'll pick you up. No. I'll meet you there. I mean, a public place. It's the same thing. And when we're in front of someone who's cute and seems normal and all of that, we don't think of things being dangerous because he's there in front of us and we're defaulting to truth. But we have to be just as circumspect. And here's the beauty of that. It weeds out men who are not serious and of possible real value to us. When we show our value, we get value.
I have so many feelings based on what you just said. I mean, first and foremost, yes. I think in the moment, I was in the moment, and I hadn't felt, you're right. It is rare for me to meet someone that I like, or that I'm interested in, I should say. And I think in the moment, I wasn't thinking of safety because I was enamored, and by our conversation. That being said, what you're saying is absolutely true, and I will carry this with me. And I also think that I realized, I was just listening before we spoke. I've listened to your book several times and I've read it, but I was listening once again, and the concept of consumers, and I think deep down I did have a knowing. This is going to sound strange, but I had a knowing, even when we were talking. I was like, this is a delightful conversation, but this is not going to go anywhere. I believe that what also may have been holding me back from doing something like that is knowing that he may have not followed up with, oh, then let's do dinner, or I'd love to see you again, because maybe he wasn't in that state. And because I think it's hard for me to accept, and I am accepting it, but the reality of the fact that there will be great guys I meet that are simply, they're just not in that place to truly be interested and available, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. Total sense. I just heard that you have connected to using your gut feeling and intuition, which typically doesn't fail us. We have so much knowing that isn't verbal, isn't conscious, isn't even on a plane of like, wow, where did that come from, right? Totally happens. And you're connecting to something that will bode well for you for your lifetime with men. And it's not that consumers are bad men. They're not. Just like we can love all puppies and love on them when we're around them, but we're not going to adopt them. We can love on a puppy that we see and it's there and someone said, well, it's available for adoption. You just loved on it. Why don't you adopt it? You're not ready. It's not the right time. May not be the right puppy. All those things. Doesn't make you bad because you love puppies. And when you are a good person and I can't take on a puppy now. I'm not in the right place. I don't have the right finances. I can't be responsible for it, nor do I want to be responsible to it. You let it be adopted by someone else. The problem is that men as consumers, they want to love on the puppy. And we have to be the puppy that says, well, no, you know what? I don't want you to love on me because I might then turn around and love you. Very tough. because we all like the attention and the petting. We all like it, and we all need it to one degree or another. So it makes it tough. But when we know, in terms of like right off the bat, your inner knowing, your intuition, your God-given knowing did trigger you off. And I like that connection between, I bet I didn't do that because I was afraid of the answer. And fear tends to hurt us more long-term than it does in the moment. I dare say he probably would have been social and said, yes, well, I'll call you. And he wouldn't have done it. But when he thought, I can get her alone in my, no pun intended, cockpit, he wanted to, of course. Any thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah. This Yes, and I think that's what's deeply difficult for me, and something I need to get over, is that you meeting good consumers and putting that boundary, especially when it is so rare for me as the puppy to like any of the owners coming into, the clinic. I'm like, to feel that spark is rare, but I do know that I need to hold my ground and stay firm to what I believe I deserve, and what I know I want.
Mm-hmm. And when you put safety first, you will always make the right decision and give the right signals, because men value women who honor their safety, because they know they are predators as men and women are prey. And they want to be a good man who really likes you, will be protective of you, especially when you show I'm of value and I put my safety first. And you can weed out the not so good ones very, very, very quickly. So let's get to some of your other questions, which are really good ones, which are about the successful and stable man being turned off by a woman who doesn't come from an equally successful background. It kind of parlays to your other question about worthiness and lovability when you didn't get it as a child. And let's do that right after we come back.
Have you been holding off going online or going back to online dating? Well, I hate to be the one to tell you, but online is the place men go to find dates. And I want you to be prepared to succeed in finding love. No more excuses. And now you don't have to make excuses, because my One Love approach to online dating is a game changer. This affordable go-at-your-pace self-help course gives you what to text and say when he sends a lame hi. It explains how to guide a guy to call to introduce himself, which if you're not doing, you're setting yourself up for failure. I bet you didn't know that. And in the course, you'll find out why it's so important. One Love outlines the 2 things never to include in your photos, and exactly where to go and where not to agree to go on a first meeting. Did you know that going for coffee is a no-no? And dinner is even worse? Surprised? If so, then you've got to get this course so you can set the right tone for a man to be most interested in you, should you be interested in him. Then you're in the driver's seat should you want things to go the distance. Because it's only when you set things on the right track from the start that you will have a real shot at long-lasting love from meeting online. The best part? As part of this incredibly affordable course, you get a full coaching intensive experience with me to ask me anything and everything you have questions about, maybe about a special guy you've met. So don't delay one more day. Go to CoachPaulaGrooms.com/programs and click on my One Love Self-Help course. That's the online to never-ending love self-help course where you'll get everything you need to know to do online right this time around. That's coachpaulagrooms.com/programs, and we'll be talking soon.
So we're back with 22-year-old Rose, who has wonderful questions that we're going to get to. And this one about a successful, stable man being turned off by a woman who doesn't come from an equally successful background. Tell me about that, Rose, how you came to ask that question, if you've had an experience with it.
Absolutely. I come from humble beginnings, and by humble beginnings, I mean financially, but more so emotionally. It wasn't until I think it was probably my maybe 14th birthday, or my friend's 14th birthday. I went to her house, and her father had created a presentation. It was her birthday, my friend's birthday, but he created this amazing presentation for the mother. And he said, "We created this video for you because even though it is this young woman's birthday, I love you, and I want to celebrate you and everything that you are to me and this family." And I was taken aback by that. I had to excuse myself and use the restroom because I was crying. I did not understand that men could behave in that way. My relationship with my father is quite fractured, and I would dare say he's had an abusive pattern, and I think because of that, I'm a total nerd, and in college I started meeting more people who come from more stable backgrounds, and I continue to do so, and I would actually really like to, because when the time comes and I have my own family, I know because my own family is so fractured, I would like to be with someone who comes from more of a stable family, and this has nothing to do with finances, more so emotionally secure. I would like for someone who is as ambitious as me, of course, because, you want to just be on even footing, but someone who comes from a loving and healthy family. I do get nervous that my background and the challenges that I have would get in the way of that person wanting to be with me, because, I mean, it's a lot. It really is a lot. I don't know who's going to walk me down the aisle one day. I'm trying not to cry.
Mm.
That's it, yeah.
Mm. It's very touching. And just talking to you and hearing how smart you are, how much depth you have, I have no doubt that you can get all that you missed as a child. And yes, there are men like your friend's father out there. And while they may not be as good at verbalizing it and showing it as that man was, I mean, what an amazing guy to honor the mother and daughter in that way and think about that and doing that. I want you to take that as a sign to you. If you can think about it as, wow, that's a gift of knowing as well. Because you see, if one man is capable of that, that means that every man could be capable of that. In other words, there's nothing in the universe that hasn't been here. It's kind of like matter is not created or destroyed, right? It's that it's there. And so that means that any man could be capable of it. And what would make that wife or that daughter any more worthy of it than any other woman? See, when we look at it under that lens, I mean, I'm sure they're great women, both of them. But it doesn't mean that every other woman isn't equally able to have that kind of love and worthy of it. You absolutely are. And it doesn't matter where you were born, under what conditions, what kind of childhood. Nothing matters except being open to accepting it and feeling worthy of it. Now, that's where we get into a little bit of a challenge, because we know from 0 to between 5 and 7, we are embedded with our self-concept, so to speak. And what I mean by that is that it's almost like a blank computer, and we fill it with all the apps and material that we want it to get. Here's the beauty. If you think about it in that way, that we're continuing to update our computers. So even if it's put on the hard drive, and what we got from 0 to 5 or 0 to 7, which is all in our subconscious mind, and very deep, it's not easy, but it's actually doable to rewire, so to speak, or reboot by the decisions we make as an adult and the work we do on our subconscious and self-worth, on all of our self-concept. We can make those changes. It cannot come intellectually. It wasn't put in us intellectually. Because I bet, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rose, that on the outside, you know what I'm saying, that yes, I'm as worthy as any other person. We're all created equal in God's eyes. And certainly you're as worthy. You also know probably your value intellectually and physically and always everything about you intellectually. But this is deeper than that, correct?
Absolutely. There's something, it's quite frustrating actually, because mentally, I know that I'm deserving of love and just a healthy relationships, not just romantically, but in general. And but then there's a block that I feel, and it frustrates me because it's like my mind is one place, but then I feel sometimes like I'm in a loop, and that can be very frustrating.
So true. And it frustrates all of us when we get to this place where you are right now. And the beauty is you're getting to it at a very young age. And this requires us to, like we would go on a computer and kind of take out the virus and then, or update an old app, so to speak, and put in the updates. It's just like that. And we can do that with meditation, sleep affirmations. We need to get into it with when our subconscious is most open, but it's mindfulness at all times and getting to the deepest beliefs that were put in us. And I do this in my coaching program because it really is a must for us to get to that, to up our self-worth and our self-concept and our value. And when we do, we are more able to get it. The response to it comes more readily from men. And then we set about doing what we know to do in the work and the methods with men that work best. But that foundation really has to be there. And you've already connected to it. Now it's just what you do with it. And There are so many things you can do. Hypnotherapy, I believe, is a foundational thing we can all use. But we got to identify the beliefs first, and they are beyond your intellectual. So your intellectual knows, just like you said, yeah, I'm worthy, I'm valuable, I'm as worthy and significant as someone else. I bring to the table equal, or sometimes you look at it and say even more value in a different way. It's very interesting. It's almost a mind mess up, when we see this in our outer world and it doesn't connect. And that's what's happening for you. You have to get to those beliefs. And those beliefs were put in by someone else. And what I mean by that is that when we don't have language, when we're a baby, and from 0 to almost 7, we are totally in our subconscious mind, meaning we live in our subconscious mind. It's why we don't have many memories. If we didn't have some kind of real trauma in those ages, and even then, we may not have any memory at all, but it's all embedded in our computer, in our subconscious, which controls all of our behavior. And we don't override it with the intellectual until we've identified exactly the beliefs, and then we have to go in and we have to counteract them. So if there was abandonment, say, by a parent, and it can be either one. Psychologically, it used to be looked at, it was only the opposite sex parent. Now, that can have a profound effect, because if you were abandoned by a father, and this can be physically, emotionally, verbally, meaning he doesn't talk. It can be in so many ways, but the subconscious of the young girl connotes. So, for example, say he wasn't verbal, just a man who didn't talk, which can happen. What does that young girl connote? The man I love doesn't want to talk to me. Men don't like talking to me. I'm not worthy of communication. And we can take any other thing. So if you're abandoned, men I love, because your first love interest is your primary male figure in your life, typically a father who's around or not around. So if you were abandoned, what does that child with no experience, no any consciousness by experience and knowledge and language connote? I'm not worthy of love and commitment. I'm not of value enough to be paid attention to. My needs are not valued. I don't deserve to get my needs met. All manner of different things that can be connoted from that innocent subconscious. As we mature and we become learned and we become aware and our conscious develops, many times we create a story around it, or we know the reason. And again, remember, we are all in a state of self-absorption when we are that age. So everything in our world, we believe, is connected to us, even if it's not. This is very long-winded about getting to your deepestly held subconscious beliefs. You can look in your outer world right now and kind of reverse engineer to get to the deepest belief. Typically, they have to do with worth, value, trust, lovability. But you have to get to them. Okay, I'm off my momentary soapbox, and want to hear what you think about that.
It was profound, and I'm processing. I think you're right. I was a little spooked for a moment because you said, if there was abandonment, you know, I think that exactly how you said, if there was abandonment, you translated to men don't like talking to me or men don't like spending time with me. And that was part of the case when I lived with my father, and that has been replicated in my relationships. And I think what's interesting is you mentioned as children, we make everything about us, which is natural. But oftentimes, in listening to your book and your podcast and being a part of the 80/20 Wonder Club, I think about how, as a woman now, as an adult, I can't make the actions of men about me in terms of whether or not he's a consumer or a buyer, or whether or not he's able to, or he's interested in pursuing me. I cannot internalize that as there's something missing within me. And that's a connection I just made in processing what you were saying. But I'm realizing there's a lot of, I felt for a long time that I need to just take some time to myself. And it's affirming to hear this, because now I have an idea of what to do with that time that I need to just focus and do this work. So thank you.
I love that. It's so true that this work is what we can do, whether or not we're involved with someone and or dating. They're not mutually exclusive, because you can now, with this awareness, go forward. And when you meet men with this awareness, you continue to work on it vis-a-vis that particular man. It's actually what I do with women in my coaching, because we don't have to put our life on hold with men while we do this work. We can do it via them, like through them, through the man that we're with. We get the most profound insights, and the experience of doing, along with this back work and work we're doing on on ourselves, it's just a great combination. I love that you connected to, it was about me in a child's mind. It always is. There's no child that's any different than any other, because we come into the world a blank slate, except for our, think about it. The guts of the computer are there when you get it. And nowadays you might have, on a regular PC, you might have Word on it or something. But that's it. And the rest of the information all has to be put on it. And it's going to accept whatever you put on it. And that's the baby brain. And it stays that way. And every bit of energy, thought, word, deed goes into it without the filter of a conscious mind who knows right from wrong, good from bad, useful, not useful. It's all on there. And what you just said about, okay, now I'm an adult woman and now I can't make it about me, you hit on something profound. No matter what, if you don't do this work, you will, on a subconscious level, make it about you. We all do this, and it's why we get triggered. And actually, what we'll do when we're not mindful is we will seek out men like the parent who we had the most difficulty with, in order to try or make an attempt to rebut what was kind of put in us and fix in the adult world. It's why, say, for example, You have a very, we'll just make it very simple. A father with a tremendous temper that you as a child were fearful of, and so you held back from doing things that might upset him. Maybe you were super quiet because mom said, let's not upset dad, or whatever it is, right? So you intuited, of course, that you were the issue and you have to be the good girl so as not to upset dad. So you grow up and you kind of know this now. Intellectually, you know it. You might even have dealt in therapy knowing it. All manner of, stuff that you know as a conscious adult woman. And what you end up attracting and finding and dealing with in your life, if you don't get to the subconscious stuff and get it out of there, the angry man. We have to break the cycle. Because if we don't, we end up maybe having children with that man, and then we replicate it. It's the cycle, the pattern. But we can do this by getting to the deepest held subconscious beliefs and challenging them. And you do this through discovering and then through different modalities of getting to your subconscious, working with it in a state of kin to sleep, also discovering what you want and only putting your focus there. It kind of rewires you. I do it in my programs with a both and, dealing with in the here and now what works best with a man, but also recognizing all of these things for each individual woman and working through them to get beyond them using this type of modality that I'm talking about. And then also the understanding of what will work with the man best in the here and now to allow for that in the best way possible. So I think, Rose, that was a way that we kind of talked about your question of what can you do to elevate your feelings of worthiness and lovability.
Absolutely. You put 2 plastic bottles in one recycling can. I try not to use the bird one. But absolutely, I'm so grateful, and I'm processing. This is a lot in a great way. I have been in and out of therapy for the last 4 years, and I feel like in this hour-long conversation, you've cracked something that I wasn't able to get in therapy for 4 years. And, different things work for different people. Obviously, that's not a reflection of therapy, but this has been a profound conversation. So thank you for these answers.
That's so great to hear. Yes, I've come to this work, my work is as a social worker. Prior to that, I was in show business. I mean, so many things have brought me to where I am today in the work that I do. There is a place for therapy, certainly, but I think, behavioral work in therapy became very, very popular over the last 20 years. This takes it to even the next level because it can be very comforting to go and see a counselor and discuss issues. The issue I have with that is it is greatly and not only an intellectual exercise, meaning it's not getting to the subconscious beliefs and changing them. And then the second thing is the foundational principle of coaching, and why in my social work career I went to coaching over going down the road of being a therapist. Because the coaching principle, what we focus on, we get more of. That's foundational. And this is the work that I'm talking about with manifesting and with getting to these beliefs and affirming and working towards the opposite. Because if you focus on lack, you get lack. If you focus on no love, you get no love. If you focus on pain, you get more pain. It's foundational. And when generally people go to therapy, they're thinking about the pain and trying to get out of the pain. But what do? They talk about the pain. You just get more pain. Now, it can be healing, but it can take longer, and it doesn't immediately address the issue. It does help you figure it out. So that can be great. But staying in it kind of keeps you in it. Whereas this kind of work is much more, let's immediately switch here. What we want is love, commitment, feelings of worthiness, all those things. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. But the focus needs to go towards what we want. So it's just a different way to get to it. And again, like you said, we want to do what, there's not a one size fits all. However, these principles, and why I like hypnotherapy, is because it really does get to the subconscious beliefs. And that can be transformational. Rather than going in and focus and talking about the problem, it's only to create the hypnotherapy to get to the subconscious beliefs and turn it around. You can do that. It takes a little bit of a longer route to do it ourselves with manifesting and affirmations and doing things in a state akin to sleep and all of that, listening to sleep meditations, but it absolutely can be done. So I love these conversations because, yes, they tend to go a little bit deeper than we think. And it's like all kinds of work that we do on ourselves. Each insight leads to another and another and another, and it's like, wow,
Absolutely. I feel I'm so quiet, and it's mostly because I am deeply processing everything that's been said. I was feeling so sad this week because all of my friends are in relationships, and I just been feeling like, why am I not meeting anybody? Why am I the single friend? And it's a silly thought, I know, but it is a true one, and it is one that came into my mind, and I own it. And I think that it's because in part because I have a lot. It's just not the time for me. I would love to get to a place where I am over these limiting beliefs and these emotions. I'd love to heal above all else, and this conversation helped me see that right now what's most important to me. I know that I can do two things at once, but healing is most important to me.
Yes. So your last question here was, do men think what you do with them, you do with all men, because what they do with us, they do with all women? Now that we've had this conversation and you have read my book, what do you think the answer to that is?
I think it depends on the woman. I think that they will try certain things, and it depends on what each individual woman will allow and what she inspires out of him through her boundaries and what she will and will not accept.
Yes. However, when you do that with him, so say you have a man and you are showing boundaries and what you will and won't accept from him, he does believe that's what you do with all men. Do you see? If you have lack of boundaries, whatever you do, he thinks you would do, could do, or are doing with other men. It's not a pleasant thing to think about because it's not true. It's just not true. Now, if you try to tell that to a man, he will never believe you. This is the problem. And it's the Madonna whore dichotomy at its, certainly not finest is not the word, but it's just foundational. Men put us in one of two categories, according to the Freud. Actually, Freud coined it as the Madonna whore complex. It's been updated, so to speak, to the Madonna whore dichotomy because it is known to be foundational in the male brain. And men make a very quick, very snap judgment on putting a woman in one category or the other. Woman to have fun with, woman that is more Mother Mary-like and can possibly be a wife and mother. Now, doesn't mean that when he meets you, he won't try to push you towards and it's not my word, I don't like it, but it is what it is in terms of how it was coined, more towards the whore category. Sure, he will. He will push those boundaries to try to get there. When we show the man, no, I don't with you, he believes that you wouldn't with any man, and that bodes really well for you. Because you see, we know that we wouldn't. What we do with him, if we really like him, we are attracted to him, it's him we want, we are not doing what we would do with him with all men at all. It's because we like him. But we have to show him that we treat him like we would all other men. It's how he can trust us. That's how he trusts. Otherwise, he cannot trust because they don't have in their brains the discernment and they do not believe. They may pay lip service to it. It's why a woman who, if she sleeps with a man and she feels it's too soon, I tell her, do not say, that I've never done this before, or I am not, it won't mean a thing. What you can do is take ownership of it and do not change the way you were with him after the fact. I always say, it's not when you have sex with someone as much as it is, did you change after the fact? Because here's what we know about humans in meeting someone new. Before you ever meet him, you're carefree, you don't know him, you're not interested in him at all. And he comes into your radar and he's cute and you like him, and lo and behold, you sleep with him on the first date or the second date. If you change your energy after that, certainly within the short term, you are going to hurt yourself. Now that may seem oxymoronic because, well, if I don't put myself back into the Madonna category, he'll think I'm in the second category. Yes, it's over time what we do to get you back into the Madonna category. However, saying it will not do it. Men don't relate via verbalization. And again, what we do with him, he thinks you could do, would do, or are doing with all other men. Do. So it doesn't matter what you say, and it goes along with my other saying, which I hope you'll keep in mind. If you are staying, no matter what you are saying, you are okaying whatever he's doing and whatever's going on in the relationship. Actions. Women relate via verbalization, men relate via action. So kind of went off on a tangent there, but if you are in a situation whereby you feel like, oh, shoot, if I had just waited, or I made a misstep, or I'm feeling like he's pulling away. Maybe I didn't put myself in the right category. He thinks I'm not commitment material. He feels he can't trust me, even though, I've said, or even that I've shown I'm all in for just him. I can help you with that and connect with me. Either, be on the podcast or connect with me to do a consult. We'll see if we can't get you on the right track with that if you have someone in your life. But in terms of dating, and you haven't met someone yet, you have to remember all of that. Yes, that's how men think. We can't get past that by anything we say. It's not dependent on the man. It's just a foundational thing in all men, in their reptilian brain, because it was very useful for men to categorize in a snap judgment a woman to procreate with or not. Did that answer what you actually questioned about, Rose?
It was helpful. I guess what I'm trying to see is this is how men come to trust us, by believing what we do with them, we do with all others. So we have to keep that in mind. And I find it very helpful to know this. But in terms of us trusting them, maybe it's just not a healthy thought pattern to go down, but what they do with us, do they do with all women, is really what I'm trying to understand.
Okay. So here's what I can give you. He will treat you as you present. And if he is interested in what you are presenting, he will move forward with it. So for example, if he is in the state of being a consumer, and you are presenting that you only are interested, and you go down the road of, I'm relationship material, I am not just going to have sex with you, I am not just going to be consumed. If he's starting to fall for you, he may move into that more of a buyer state. If he doesn't have those feelings and he's just a consumer, he will drop it and move on. So yes, he will treat you as you are showing yourself to be treated. And he believes that's how you deal with all men. Do you see?
Very helpful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's really tough because of the fact that it's not at all true about us. What we do with him, we don't do with all men, nor do we want to. It's typically about him because we like him, and it's more rare. Men are not puppies to us at all. And we're all on a scale. Some women can like more men. Others, it's so particular for them. He has to be a certain height, and he has to look a certain way, and he has to, act, all manner of different things that have to come into play. There's an old joke that goes along with that. What does a man have to do on a first date to impress a woman? And the answer is everything right. What does a woman have to do to impress a man? Show up. It's just, the difference between men and women that we must keep in mind for ourselves. And it's tricky. It's part science, it's part art. And all that I talk about here is combining those two things. It's so important for us to have love in our life, and yet it's so elusive. And if it weren't so elusive, it wouldn't be as meaningful and as special. In other words, whatever is really worthwhile in life is a challenge and difficult. Love is really no different. We can make it a bit easier on ourselves and less heartbreak. That's what I'm all about. But it doesn't come without just, we're talking about here, being mindful and really knowing what it takes. So I thank you today for doing this, Rose. I think these questions were really wonderful and will be great for other women to hear. I hope you got value from it.
Oh, thank you so much, Coach Paula. I'm stunned, I'm processing, and I really appreciate everything you said. And if anything, I feel inspired, and I feel like I needed to hear this. I think that this conversation came into my life for a reason at the right moment. So thank you for your time.
I love that. Yeah, I really love that because I think that's the synchronicity. It's great, really great. And I'm so happy we did it. Thank you, Rose. But I loved Rose's questions. And if you have questions, I hope you will consider being on the podcast. As you can see, a discussion like this can be profound, really impactful for your growth, your understanding of men. I loved it because, like with anyone who speaks, and we speak our truth, we speak what we know, we actually solidify it for ourselves. And when I'm talking to you, I'm also growing, learning, experiencing, enjoying all those wonderful things. And I appreciate you being here. I hope, like Rose, you will consider becoming a member of the 80/20 Wonder Club, whereby you can get all other kinds of material, multimedia content that will also support your learning and growing and all that we're talking about here today. And you will get a new episode as soon as it comes out, because if you're just listening on whatever platform you're listening on at the moment, this season, beginning in season 2, you will only get a new episode every 6 weeks to 2 months, whereby you can get a new episode the minute we have it all together for you, and at the beginning music and so forth. And that can be as much as once a week, every 2 weeks. As soon as we get it out, we put it there. I also provide a video beforehand telling you my experience of the discussion, the topic, anything that I think is a really important salient point for you to take away. So I like doing that as well. So I hope you'll join us at the 80/20 Wonder Club. That's the 8020wonder.club. And by the time you're listening to this, a new, improved, lower price that makes it all the more affordable for you to become a member. And I hope you will. And I hope to be talking to you soon. Don't forget, with any man in your life, it's so important that you make him wonder.
I trust you got a lot of good information from today's episode. So go to makehimwonder.com. There you can take my free relationship evaluations. You can learn how to talk to me privately or as a guest on the Make Him Wonder podcast, and how you can join the 80/20 Wonder Club, an exclusive club where you will get episodes you won't find anywhere else. So that you always remember to make your Mr. Right wonder, go right now to makehimwonder.com.